Okay, welcome everybody. There's probably no one online yet, so I'll wait for people to get here if anyone does. Okay, I should be starting in a few seconds here, just getting everything else set up. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the J Report podcast. It's February 28th, 2017. Should be a short one, maybe a few minutes. I'll probably get another podcast out later this week, maybe tomorrow, maybe later tonight, I don't know. I just wanted to discuss NFL free agency and specifically the Oakland Raiders. There's a lot of news coming out about the running back position in Oakland. They're saying that Latavius Murray is going to test the free agent market. And then there's also linking names. They're linking Eddie Lacy, Adrian Peterson to the Oakland Raiders. And there's a few things about that. The first thing is there's no chance. There's really no chance. Why would the Raiders bring in Adrian Peterson and Eddie Lacy? Right? Those are the two names that everyone has seen. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because one, if you're talking Eddie Lacy, and really for Adrian Peterson as well, they haven't been on the field at all. They've been injured most of the time, most of the season. Last season, Eddie Lacy had a concussion, didn't really play. Adrian Peterson, I believe, missed a lot of last season. He's had a lot of ACL, knee injuries. And even when he was playing last season, Adrian Peterson had maybe, was averaging 2 yards a carry. So he wasn't very effective running the football anyways. So why does it make sense to bring in those running backs, right? It honestly, it doesn't make any sense. And also, it's not like you're going to bring in Adrian Peterson and Eddie Lacy, for a bargain. If you brought them in for a bargain, say under $5 million a year, then I would say go for it. Let Latavius Murray walk. I hope they don't let Latavius go, because I don't see them bringing in Eddie Lacy or bringing in Adrian Peterson for a cheap amount. But it's just dumb to think that the Raiders are gonna bring in Adrian Peterson and Eddie Lacy. I mean, it's those. I'll say this: those are the type of moves that killed the Raiders in the past. Bringing in old players, old players that you probably are gonna have to overpay for. Maybe. I don't see Eddie Lacy taking less money. Why he shouldn't? He hasn't made a ton of money in his career. Yeah, he's made good money, but not great money. Adrian Peterson might take a pay cut. He might take a pay cut for the reason that he's made, he's had his big contracts. He's made his big money. He goes to the Oakland Raiders, and that could, and they're a Super Bowl contender. In all reality, the Oakland Raiders are Super Bowl contenders. So that would help them bring in Adrian Peterson if he takes a pay cut. Now, going on, if they do take a pay cut, then sure, bring them in. I would rather have Latavius Murray for a few reasons. As long as you're not overpaying him. If you're overpaying any player, if you're the Oakland Raiders, you say goodbye, because they are not going to have very much cap space in the future, because they still have Derek Carr, and they still have Khalil Mack. I'm pulling it up, the salary for the Oakland Raiders right now, the salary cap, overthecap.com. Great website. But, I checked a few days ago. I think it's about $44 million. They have $43.9 million in cap space for this season, right? I'm not sure exactly if the Derek Carr and Khalil Mack contracts would count towards the cap this season once they get done, because they're going to get done. But, if you think about it, they have $44 million. I mean, you're going to be paying Khalil Mack and Derek Carr $44 million a year from here on out, right? I mean, Derek Carr's, if he gets what the market's going to give him, if he doesn't take any sort of pay cut, he's going to get $25 million a year. It's that simple. He's going to be the highest. If he wants to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, he will be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And then you move on to Khalil Mack, probably $20 million, because he just won Defensive Player of the Year. So he's going to get paid probably as the highest paid defensive player. And that's what you have with the Raiders, right? So you might have the highest paid offensive player next year and the highest paid defensive player. If they wanted to get that, if Khalil Mack and Derek Carr said, you know what, that's what we want, the Raiders have to pay them that, and they could do that. Hopefully they don't. Maybe they don't. I don't, no one can say except Derek and Khalil themselves. If they want to say, we'll take a little bit less money to help keep Latavius Murray, right? Because, if you just look at the numbers, right? I don't think that the Carr and Mack, they're not going to count a ton for the cap this year. So I think if you're Reggie McKenzie, you could front load a bunch of contracts, but that means you can't really bring in a ton of players, right? If you're going to completely front load them, So that goes back. There's not a lot of money to spend, really, if you're Oakland, because in the future it's going to be really tough. I'm looking at the top 5, average salary of a running back. Le'Veon Bell just is he got franchise tagged, but so he's at $12.3 million, right? That's $4.3 million in the second highest paid running back in the NFL, which is LaShawn McCoy, $8 million. So, we're trying to fit, where does Latavius Murray fit into this? He is probably, he's a step down, maybe 2 steps down from a Le'Veon Bell. He's probably a step down, I think, from LaShawn McCoy. So, I think he would be around $6 to $7 million a year is what I'm guessing. I don't know what Adrian Peterson would be, so it's not a ton of money, but you don't really have that $6 to $7 million to spend on Latavius Murray. I think if you get him for $6 million a year, I think you have to do it for one reason, and this is also why I wanted to do this, is because everyone's disrespecting Latavius Murray right now. I don't understand that. You don't have Latavius Murray. Who's going to run the football? It's like Jalen and Rashard and DeAndre Washington were nice. They're, right now, yeah, maybe in a year or two they're going to be an every down back, one of them. But not now. There's no way they were last year. So why would you expect them to be that this year? They're they're compliments to a back like Latavius, because they got speed and they can catch out of the backfield. Yeah, that would be nice with Adrian Peterson if Adrian Peterson is Adrian Peterson. If Adrian Peterson is Adrian Peterson, then shit, pay him $10 million. It doesn't matter. But the likelihood of that is, he's past 30 years old. He has an injury history, so he probably won't be the Adrian Peterson of old. But the one thing I'll say about Latavius Murray is, you don't want to overpay him. If it's in the $6 to $7 million range, I think you go for it. If he's trying to get anywhere, close to whatever LaShawn McCoy or Le'Veon Bell is going to get, then you say, hell no, you got to walk. But just remember the games that Latavius Murray, and this is something weird with the Raiders front office too, is they've disrespected Latavius, is they didn't really give him a lot of carries early in the season. I'm sure, fantasy owners, Raider followers, they realized that, it was rare for Latavius to get over 10 carries a game at the beginning of the year. Then he got hurt, right? Latavius got hurt, and the football team struggled. The football team struggled without Latavius. Just look at the stats here, right? They didn't have Latavius against San Diego at home week 5, 34-31. They missed it, right? That game was a 3-point game. San Diego got a field goal. That game should have gone into overtime. Raiders are a much better team than San Diego at home. Shouldn't be that close. It's hard to point to Latavius because they scored 34 points in that game. But still, that's something to think about. But the next game, they don't have Latavius Murray against Kansas City, and they got absolutely walloped. 26-10. They had no running game, right? If you were playing against Kansas City and you're one-dimensional, well, you're gonna get destroyed. They're gonna eat you up. So we saw that it was 26-10 at home. It looked terrible, and it was a wet rainy game. So the running game would have helped you a lot. But right now, what happens? You get Latavius Murray back. Right? Week 7 against Jacksonville. What happens over the next 6 games? You win all 6 games. You go on a 6-game winning streak. Latavius Murray is your leading rusher from week 7 to week 15. They started giving him the ball. He also had, a ton of touchdowns last year. It might have been 10 touchdowns. Oh, even more. Sorry, he had 12 touchdowns. He had 12 touchdowns last year. So, in the red zone, he's a beast. So that's what I understand. I like having Latavius there, and then the compliments of DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard. We saw Derek Carr. He came out and said that he would want to keep Latavius Murray. I believe him. I like, Latavius is a good guy. He's a guy that you want to give money to. And, he would be nice to sign long-term. He's a young player. And I have an article coming out either, tonight, probably tomorrow, that is discussing NBA and NFL franchises. But, should they plan for the long term or should they plan for the short term? And this is an example. This is a tough example for the Oakland Raiders with Latavius Murray. And this is as long as you're not going to overpay him. If you're overpaying a player, get out. Goodbye. We don't want you. But Latavius is a young player. There's players like Lacy and especially Adrian Peterson in free agency who are much older. It's to be said if they would come cheaper than Latavius Murray. Obviously, it would be a shorter deal, not, the length of the contract would be much less, so, you're not owed him money down the line. But the annual yearly salary might be similar. So, what do you bring in? Do you re-sign Latavius? You're going to have him for the next 5 years. Or do you bring in an Adrian Peterson where, really, best case scenario, 1 year. But the Raiders, right now, they think themselves as Super Bowl contenders. I think they're Super Bowl contenders as long as Derek Carr is healthy. Right? As long as Derek Carr is healthy. They're Super Bowl contenders. So, but now, the issue is you bring in Adrian Peterson. He might not do anything this year because he's had issues staying healthy. There's also question marks of his productivity even when he is healthy. So when he's gone the following year, who do you have? DeAndre Washington, Jalen Richard. Are they saying, well, we'll draft running back and by that time we should have one? Or we'll find one in free agency? I don't know. That's tough. If you have Latavius, well, you're going to be good for the next 5 years. And I'll also say this, I think Latavius is a good running back. He's not great. And the Raiders front office did not seem to like him. And I don't, they didn't give him the ball early in the year. I don't know if they're saving him for the end of the season. Or they just thought that DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard would be better. It's tough to say. I don't know if they think, well, hey, if we, Latavius is just good. He's having... he has pretty darn good numbers. Is that because of our offensive line? And also, the Raiders' offensive line, for being told as the second best offensive line, in the league, They still struggled to run the ball against good teams. They really did. And I don't know, is that because of Latavius or is that because of the offensive line? We'll have to wait and see. But let me finish this. I probably have to go soon and sign off. But if they're gonna pay a lot of money to Latavius Murray, and I hope they shouldn't, and the Raiders still have a lot of holes, and this also gets into Derek Carr and Khalil Mack again, because they're not going to have a lot of cap space, and they still have a lot of holes on the defense, right? At middle linebacker position, Perry Riley is okay. The weak side linebacker position, Malcolm Smith, pretty below average. So you have those two spots. You have the secondary, the cornerback position needs to be filled. Reggie Nelson's old. He could use an upgrade there. He's a player that I wouldn't mind the Raiders cutting, honestly. He's due $7-8 million. That would be someone you cut cap space, and he's overrated, just pure and simple. I mean, he made the Pro Bowl because of his name. He had a lot of interceptions late in the year that I don't, he has the stats, but he's not as productive of a football player as you might think. So, there's a lot of other holes. There's a lot of players out there that I would really like the Raiders to bring in more than Latavius Murray. And I think that's going to be the issue. I think the Raiders are going to let Latavius go out there. They're going to hope that a team doesn't overpay him. And that hope that Latavius will then be like, okay, my value's not as high as you may think. I'm going to come back to the Raiders for a long-term deal, but not a lot of money. The Raiders would be so happy for that, I think. If a $5-6 million range would be ideal for Latavius Murray. If you approach Latavius Murray numbers, you got to say goodbye. You got to get out of that. But for the Raiders, there's players like Dante Hightower didn't get franchise tagged by New England. If I'm Oakland, that is a guy that I am looking hard at to bring in, because the linebackers sucked for the Raiders this year. They also need help at defensive tackle, but you'll be able to get some of that in the draft. And there's also a lot of good running backs available. The issue I have with if you bring in draft another speed guy is if you have another speed guy in the draft, like the guy from Florida State, then you're going to have three of the same guy. That's what I sort of liked about Latavius, was he was a big guy, so that, works well with DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard. But I would rather have Dante Hightower than Jalen Richard, because I think, the Raiders defensively have a lot of talent, and they're just maybe one or two pieces away from really completing that defense becoming an elite defense, and Dante Hightower would be a fix at one of their weakest positions, and it would turn a huge weakness into an absolute strength. The cornerback position, you would like to bring someone in, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, because you paid Sean Smith and you paid David Amerson. That's going to be really tough. There's a guy like Tony Jefferson, mentioned a lot with the Raiders, great young talent. He's a guy that you have to look at, because you pair him with Carl Joseph, well, you're going to have your safeties. They're going to be tough, and they're going to be very good for the next 6-7 years. So hard to pass up Tony Jefferson and Dante Hightower, because he's a young player too. He's still coming off his rookie contract. So I think we're done here. I'll just wrap it up. Everyone needs to stop disrespecting Latavius Murray. He means a lot more to the Raiders than you think. Stop saying, okay, goodbye Latavius Murray. We'll just bring in Adrian Peterson and Eddie Lacy. That's not going to fix your problems. I doubt that it actually ends up happening. If they lose Latavius Murray, then the Raiders do need to bring someone in there. They do. I hope they don't, then overpay for a guy like Adrian Peterson. It would be interesting to see what happens, but I don't know if I love that move per se. So stop disrespecting Latavius Murray. He's a good player. He really helped. He really helped the team. They're a better team when he was on the field, a much better team. And DeAndre Washington, Jalen Richard are good complementary players, but they're not, 3 down backs. They're not power. You can't give them the ball at the 1 yard line. right? They're going to get stuffed. Latavius showed that he could score in the red zone. If you're Oakland, you really can't overpay. That's another thing. Anyone, because Carr and Mack are going to get $45 million a year. So that makes it tougher to re-sign Latavius and bring in guys like Hightower and Jefferson. But Hightower and Jefferson would be really darn good additions to the Raiders' defense. So yeah, I think that's everything about the Raiders right now. I just saw a lot of news about it recently about Latavius Murray, Adrian Peterson, Eddie Lacy. So goodbye, everyone. Hopefully you come tune in next time we have a podcast. It'll probably be soon. This one was sort of impromptu. Didn't really have anything planned for it. But thank you guys for listening. Remember, you can comment any of your questions right here. Email us at jreportsports@gmail.com. Online at Twitter, jreportsports. Facebook, the Facebook page. Obviously, if you guys are watching it here, then you guys know where it is. Or whatever. Find me on Facebook. Find the J Report on Facebook. And goodbye. Thank you, everyone.